Hello everyone! So there's a new art challenge on Instagram where you ask your followers to give you 6 characters to make fan art of, draw in your style, what have you. And I was excited to take part in it, so I posted this to my profile and I got some really great suggestions. I could only pick 6, unfortunately, though I did cheat with a twofer. But I time-lapsed all of these fan art creations and made a video for everyone. Gary from Spongebob was my first suggestion. I have never watched Spongebob. Gasp, I know, shocking. So I don't know the character very well. I know who he is in the show. A quick Google search will tell you anything. But I don't know his personality, which is a big factor for me when creating fan art. But I do know a few things about the show, and one ongoing gag is that they zoom in to a close-up that is highly detailed in the most unflattering way. I decided to incorporate that just a little bit in this piece while still keeping within my style. How I did that was I used a textured brush to add shading and highlights, and I also added dots and circles to give the illusion of bumpy skin. I do like how this version of Gary turned out. The next character is the Tick. I have seen a few episodes of the animated show, and I've seen both of the live-action versions for this superhero. I kept him pretty simplistic, kind of the style I use for my comics, and I also took more inspiration from the animated show. I was pretty proud of myself for getting this exaggerated anatomy to look okay. He's kind of got a Mr. Incredible silhouette here. This was a little bit out of my comfort zone. Well, I wouldn't say out of my comfort zone because I don't have one of those. Let's just say he was more anatomical parts of him were showing than I normally draw. Now, I thought I did a good job in general of keeping my art subject matter diverse. I draw a lot of different types of things from animals to landscapes, but I have never drawn so many pectoral muscles for one project. I can't remember the last time I drew a pectoral muscle, but you get not 1, not 2, but 3 sets of pecs in this one video. I'm sorry, it wasn't me. I did not anticipate the amount of requests for the manliest of manly men. Now, Scooby Doo. So, what I did with all of these pieces was I sketched out my idea for the pose and overall look of the character before I looked at reference photos. I essentially sketched them from memory first so that my stylistic choices wouldn't be influenced by the character art from the show or the movie. This is kind of obvious for Scooby Doo because I forgot what his ears looked like, and I realized this only when I looked up a reference. Oh, and I also wanted to give him kind of the typical Great Dane pose where the front feet are pretty close together and the back feet are very wide apart. This messed up the balance of the piece a little bit to begin with because I did not have the front paws close enough together. I flipped the canvas, and this is why they recommend flipping the canvas because you will catch so many balance issues. I flipped the canvas, noticed it was off, adjusted it, and then this is what we ended up with. I really like him, though I always like drawing cartoon animals. Here's another character from a show that I haven't seen much of, Goliath from Gargoyles. I started watching this show on a recommendation from a friend, actually the same friend that requested this one, by the way, but I've only gotten about 5 or 6 episodes into it so far. Oh, and this is the second set of pecs that you will see in this video. I really enjoyed drawing this one. I got to use a lot of my dragon drawing skills in this piece, which I don't get to use as often as I would like. I also did something a little different with the shading. I still used the same textured brush that I used for the shading on all of the pieces, but instead of using it to add the shading, I used it to erase the shading. I just filled in the shading layer and chiseled away at it with my eraser. I love the look that this gave, but I think I should have lightened the base color first because he ended up a little hard to see on a light background. Oh, and here's the one that ended up being my favorite. Jeeves Wooster For anyone who doesn't know, it is a hilarious British comedy set in the 1920s. Based on books by P.G. Wodehouse, this show is about a clueless and not so bright wealthy young gentleman, Bertie Wooster, and his very smart and competent manservant, Jeeves, who basically gets Wooster out of whatever trouble he's gotten himself into. It's hilarious. If you like comedies and period dramas, then you will love this because it is like the best of both worlds. Anyways, I'm going down a rabbit trail here. Let's get back to the piece. I worked on this one the longest because it was the only one based on a live action series and not an animated series. I feel like it's harder to make fan art of live action characters than it is animated characters because you essentially have to make caricatures of them, figuring out what features make them the most recognizable so that you can exaggerate them. They're not already exaggerated like they are in animation, so you have to do that part of the work yourself. But I really hope I did a good job. I'm happy with the result, personally. My favorite part was drawing their expressions. And last but not least, we have Kirishima from My Hero Academia. I really love this show too, though I am almost a season behind, so shh, no spoilers. I feel like the writers take enough time to really develop their characters and to make them more human. That's the best way I can think to put it. Even though these are superheroes or superheroes in training, they still have a weakness and are still flawed, and their flaws don't ruin them. They're still very admirable people. I don't like it when a show has to quote-unquote bring down their character's goodness and either make fun of them or change them just so that they don't seem too goody-goody or silly. Marvel! What? No, I'm sorry. Excuse me. That was my rant for today. Anyways, I used the same shading techniques for Kirishima as I did for Goliath, and I was very pleased with the result. I'm going to have to use this technique more often. Definitely a great way to give atmosphere to your piece, but I think it would overall work a little bit better if the character were in an environment rather than against a solid light-colored background. I also feel like I didn't stray as far away from the character's style as I did for the others. Maybe I was just style blind at this point, since this was the last piece, and maybe my style is way more influenced by anime than I thought. I don't know. What do you think? I really enjoyed this challenge. It really took me out of my comfort zone with the kind of characters that I typically draw, and I really loved all of the suggestions that I got. So much so that I really want to do this challenge again, at least one more time. I might even do a traditional art version next time instead of digital art. So leave me some suggestions of what characters you would like to see in my style, and I will pick 6 more for my next challenge. So there we have it, 6 characters my Instagram followers suggested I turn into my style. If you would like to see these in more detail, be sure to check out my Instagram. There is a link in the description below. Have a great day. Bye.